AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her controlling and manipulative behavior, even though it's causing a huge family rift. I, 28F, have a complicated relationship with my older sister, Claire, 32F. We were always close growing up, but as we got older, her personality shifted in ways that have made it really hard for me to be around her. I want to share the full story so you can help me figure out if I'm actually the asshole here or if my feelings are justified. Claire and I grew up in a pretty average middle-class family. We were both the only kids of our parents, and for the most part, we got along. Claire was always the golden child, smart, outgoing, and very confident. I was more introverted and artistic, and while we got along, I often felt overshadowed. That's not unusual for siblings, but as time went on, Claire became more and more controlling and manipulative, and it started to really affect me. When Claire started dating her fiancé, Michael, 34M, about 3 years ago, I was initially happy for her. I wanted to support her, and for a while, things seemed fine. But as their relationship developed, Claire's behavior became more extreme. She's always been someone who likes things her way, but now she's become obsessive about control, not just with Michael, but with everyone around her. I didn't want to believe it at first, but it got worse when wedding planning started. Claire basically took over the entire family dynamic, and if anyone said anything remotely negative or tried to suggest a different idea, she'd shut them down or guilt-trip them. She demanded total control over every aspect of the wedding, from the guest list to the seating chart to the color of the napkins. It's been exhausting for everyone involved. The real problem between Claire and me began when she invited me to be a bridesmaid. I was touched, but also nervous because I know how controlling she can be. I agreed because I wanted to support her, but I set some boundaries from the start. I told her that while I'd help with the wedding, I wasn't comfortable with everything being micromanaged, and that I wanted to be able to have a say or at least express myself without feeling dismissed. Claire didn't like that. She said I was being difficult and not understanding how stressful wedding planning is. But honestly, it was more than stress. She was trying to control my schedule, my outfit, even who I could talk to during the wedding events. For example, she made me cut off contact with some mutual friends she didn't like. When I refused, she said it was disrespectful and implied that I wasn't really supporting her. Then things got worse. A few months ago, Claire had a huge meltdown because I didn't RSVP to a bridal shower invitation immediately. She accused me of not caring about her or her big day. I explained that I had been busy with work, but she wouldn't hear it. She said if I wasn't all in on her wedding, then maybe I shouldn't be part of it at all. At this point, I started feeling really hurt and anxious. I realized that Claire's expectations weren't just about the wedding. She wanted me to basically erase my own life and feelings to make her happy. I tried talking to her calmly, but she responded by gaslighting me, telling me I was overreacting and being selfish. Things came to a head last month when Claire sent me a list of rules for bridesmaids, including restrictions on my social media posts, instructions on how to behave at the rehearsal dinner, and demands about who I should hang out with during the weekend. She also threatened to uninvite me if I didn't comply. I refused to agree to those terms because they felt controlling and unfair. When I told her that I was seriously considering not attending the wedding if she kept treating me this way, she accused me of trying to ruin her special day and being dramatic. She's now told my parents and the rest of the family that I'm being selfish and that I don't care about Claire or her happiness. This has created a huge family rift. My parents are caught in the middle and are pressuring me to make things right by attending the wedding and apologizing. Claire has told mutual friends that I'm being difficult and unsupportive. Meanwhile, I'm feeling incredibly hurt and disrespected. I love my sister, but I don't want to be treated like a puppet or have my boundaries completely ignored. I decided a few days ago to write Claire a letter explaining that I cannot attend the wedding unless she respects my boundaries and treats me with basic kindness and respect. I told her I'm sorry for the pain this causes, but that I need to protect my mental health. The letter hasn't been well received. Claire is furious and has stopped speaking to me entirely. My parents have also expressed disappointment, and some family members have stopped inviting me to events. I'm torn. On one hand, I want to be there for my sister's big day. On the other hand, I don't want to sacrifice my own well-being or give in to manipulative behavior that makes me feel awful about myself. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding unless she changes how she treats me, even though it's causing a big family rift? Or am I justified in standing up for myself? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move into our family home after he got evicted. This whole situation has turned into a huge mess, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm the asshole here. I'll try to explain everything in detail. So, I, 28F, live in a house that has been in my family for a long time. It originally belonged to my parents, but since they passed away a couple of years ago, I've been living here alone. The house is in a small town where I grew up, and it means a lot to me. It's not fancy, but it's my sanctuary, the place where I feel safe and comfortable. My younger sister, Emily, 24F, has always been a bit more reckless than me. She's very social and loves to party, but has struggled with keeping a steady job. Over the last few years, she's been in a somewhat unstable relationship with her boyfriend, Jake, 26M. Jake has had his own issues, trouble holding down a job, some questionable financial choices, and a history of getting evicted from apartments because of unpaid rent. Now, the problem started about a month ago when Jake got evicted again. Apparently, he was behind on rent for several months, and the landlord finally gave him the boot. Emily called me, practically begging me to let Jake move in with me temporarily. Her reasoning was that she didn't want Jake to be homeless, and since I had the spare room in the house, it would be the right thing to do. I was taken aback. My house is my refuge, and the thought of Jake moving made me uneasy for many reasons. First, I didn't trust him to pay rent or help with bills. Second, I wasn't sure how Jake would fit into the quiet life I've built here, since he's loud, a bit irresponsible, and has had a history of damaging property in previous places. Third, Emily lives about an hour away from me, and I'm the one who would be responsible for keeping the peace in the house, not her. I told Emily that I didn't feel comfortable having Jake live with me. I said it was a lot to ask, and I had concerns about the financial and emotional stress it might cause. I also explained that I needed my home to be a stable, peaceful environment. Emily got really upset and accused me of not supporting her and Jake when they're struggling. She said I was being selfish and that family should help each other out. Over the next few days, Emily tried everything to convince me. She sent me texts about how Jake is trying to turn his life around, how he's looking for a job, and how this would only be temporary until he gets back on his feet. She said she even offered to pay me rent on Jake's behalf, but I still refused. I told her that the house is mine now, and I have the right to decide who lives there. Things got worse when Emily told Jake that I was refusing to help. Jake showed up at my door one evening, asking if he could stay just for a few days. I said no. He got angry and called me cold and heartless. That night, I found some of my things had been moved or borrowed without my permission. I'm pretty sure Jake did it, though I have no proof. Emily has since stopped talking to me. She told our parents' friends and family that I'm the villain for kicking out her boyfriend and not helping her in a time of need. Some family members have called me selfish and told me to reconsider. Others say I'm justified in protecting my space. I'm stuck because I really don't want Jake living with me, but I also don't want to alienate my sister. She's been through a lot, and maybe I could have found a middle ground. But the idea of having someone with a history of eviction and irresponsibility living under my roof feels like a risk I'm not willing to take. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move into my house after he got evicted? Or am I right to protect my home and peace of mind? AITA for refusing to forgive my sister for ruining my wedding and then pretending nothing happened? I never thought I'd be posting here, but after everything that's happened in the last year, I just don't know where else to turn. I want to know if I'm the asshole for how I handled things with my sister and our wedding, or if she's the one who completely crossed the line. To give some background, I, 29F, have always been close to my sister, Anna, 32F, but we have very different personalities and life goals. I'm more reserved, careful, and like to plan things out, while Anna is impulsive, loud, and thrives on drama and attention. For most of our lives, it was just something we accepted about each other. She's my sister, and I love her, but there have always been some tensions beneath the surface. Last year, I got engaged to my boyfriend, Mike, 30M, who is incredibly kind and steady. We started planning a small wedding because neither of us likes huge crowds or being the center of attention. The plan was simple, about 50 guests, a small venue near a lake, and a weekend celebration with close friends and family. We put a lot of thought into it to make sure it was meaningful and intimate. When I told Anna about the wedding plans, she seemed excited at first, but then started making vague comments about how small weddings are boring and how we need to make it more fun. I shrugged it off and kept planning, but the tension between us was there. I didn't want drama during my wedding, so I tried to keep things light. Fast forward to the day before the wedding. Anna shows up unannounced at the venue with about 20 of her friends. She had convinced them all to crash the wedding and turned what was supposed to be a small, quiet event into a loud, chaotic party. She brought a DJ, loud music, and started pushing people to dance and drink excessively, ignoring the venue's rules and our request to keep it low-key. Mike and I were mortified. We had specifically asked Anna to respect our wishes and keep things calm. She insisted she was just trying to make it fun and that we were being too uptight. The venue manager eventually threatened to shut the event down because of noise complaints, and several guests left early because they were overwhelmed by the chaos. During the ceremony, Anna loudly whispered to one of her friends that she was stealing the spotlight, and then proceeded to interrupt the vows by loudly cheering and making jokes. Our officiant looked uncomfortable, and Mike looked like he wanted to disappear. I ended up crying through parts of the ceremony because everything felt ruined. After the wedding, Anna acted like nothing had happened and kept posting pictures of the event on social media, boasting about how epic the party was. She never apologized or acknowledged how much she had disrupted our day. I confronted her multiple times over the following months, asking why she did it and why she wasn't taking responsibility. She told me I was being too sensitive and needed to loosen up. She also claimed that Mike was boring and that the wedding was dull without her energy. I cut off contact with her for a while because I couldn't be around someone who had disregarded my feelings so blatantly. My parents were upset with me for not forgiving her, but honestly, I just couldn't get past how she had made my special day all about herself and destroyed the atmosphere we wanted. Eventually, Anna reached out, acting like nothing was wrong and asking to hang out like before. I told her I wasn't ready to forgive or forget and that I needed time to heal. She got upset and accused me of holding a grudge and being a bad sister. Now I'm stuck. I love my sister and want to have a relationship with her, but I don't know if I can ever trust her again or if I should just accept her behavior and move on. AITA for refusing to forgive Anna after what she did at my wedding? Or should I just let it go and try to rebuild our relationship? AITA for refusing to take in my sister's kids after she abandoned them and calling her out in front of the family? This all started about 6 months ago and has completely torn my family apart. I'm still trying to make sense of everything and wondering if I really was in the wrong here. So a bit of background. I, 34M, have a younger sister, Amy, 29F, who's always been a bit of a wild card. She's had some struggles with addiction in the past, but has mostly been clean for the last few years. At least, that's what everyone believed. She has 2 kids, Jake, 7, and Sophie, 5, and was married to Mark, 33M, until they split up about a year ago. Mark is an alright guy, but he left the picture completely after the divorce, so Amy's been the primary caregiver for the kids. For a long time, I tried to stay out of Amy's life problems because it always seemed like a minefield. But I do care about my niece and nephew and have tried to be involved where I can. About 6 months ago, Amy called me out of the blue, sounding really distressed. She told me she'd made some bad decisions and was about to lose custody of her kids because she had relapsed. She said she couldn't care for them anymore and asked if I would take them in temporarily while she got back on her feet. I was shocked, obviously, but told her I'd think about it. I talked to my wife, Laura, 32F, and we discussed what it would mean to suddenly take on 2 young kids full-time. We have no kids ourselves and live in a small apartment, so space and resources were concerns. Still, I was willing to help Amy out temporarily. We agreed I'd ask my parents if they could help with childcare because I work long hours. When I told Amy I was willing to help, she got angry. She said it wasn't a favor and that it was her responsibility, so I should just step up. I explained that I was trying to figure out logistics and that I wanted to make sure it would work for everyone. She hung up on me. Over the next few days, Amy stopped answering my calls and texts. Then, out of nowhere, she showed up at my door with Jake and Sophie, looking disheveled and exhausted. She said she was going to rehab and that I had to take care of the kids. I told her I needed time to prepare and get my wife on board, but she was insistent. She pushed past me and went inside, dropping the kids off. Laura was furious. She felt blindsided and said this was unfair to her, the kids, and me. We argued about whether we could handle it, but Amy wouldn't listen. She left without saying goodbye and went to rehab. I did my best to care for Jake and Sophie, but it was overwhelming. I wasn't used to being a parent, and the kids were understandably traumatized. They'd had some rough experiences with Amy's instability and were struggling emotionally. I kept trying to reach out to Amy for guidance and support, but she barely contacted me. A few weeks later, Amy's parents, my parents, got involved. They were upset that I hadn't stepped up more and accused me of abandoning my sister and her children. At family gatherings, they would bring up how I was letting Amy down and not doing my part. I tried to explain that I was doing my best under difficult circumstances, but they didn't seem to care. Amy herself came home after rehab about 2 months later and demanded to see her kids. I said they needed time to adjust and that she needed to be more involved. She accused me of trying to keep the kids from her and got very aggressive. Things escalated until I told her she couldn't just drop the kids off and expect me to raise them while she did whatever she wanted. The family split into 2 camps, those who supported Amy unconditionally and those who sided with me, mostly my wife and a few close relatives. Amy started posting on social media about how I was a terrible brother who abandoned his family. My parents sided with her, which hurt a lot. I finally told Amy that if she wanted her kids back, she needed to take responsibility and work with me, not attack me. She responded by threatening legal action and saying I was an unfit guardian. I'm not trying to take custody. I just want what's best for the kids. The kids are still living with me and Laura, and honestly, it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. I love them, but the situation is draining and complicated. Amy is barely involved, and the family drama is exhausting. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to just take in my sister's kids without support and for standing up to Amy when she tried to force me into it? Or should I have just done whatever she wanted to keep the peace? I feel like I'm caught between doing what's best for the kids and not enabling my sister's irresponsibility. AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her new boyfriend to my wedding after his past actions. I, 32F, have been planning my wedding for over a year now. My fiancé, Tom, 34M, and I have been together for 6 years, and we finally decided to tie the knot this summer. The wedding is pretty big, about 150 guests, and we're doing it in a beautiful countryside venue that means a lot to both of us. I've always been someone who likes to plan things meticulously, and the wedding has been no exception. I want everything to be perfect, not just for us, but for our families and friends. Now, here's where things get complicated. My younger sister, Emma, 27F, has recently started dating someone new. Let's call him Jake, 29M. I say new, but actually, Emma has only known Jake for about 3 months. That's important because Jake has a history that I only found out about recently, and it's making me seriously reconsider whether I want him at my wedding. To give some background, Emma has always been a bit impulsive with relationships. She's had a handful of boyfriends over the years, some longer term than others, but none have caused much drama until now. When she introduced Jake to our family at a casual barbecue last month, I didn't think much of it. He seemed nice enough, polite, charming, and very complimentary of Emma. But a few days later, I was scrolling through social media when I stumbled upon some posts about Jake from a mutual acquaintance. The post mentioned that Jake had been involved in a very serious incident a couple of years ago where he was accused of harassment at his previous workplace. I dug deeper. Turns out, Jake was suspended for 6 months after an internal investigation found that he had made inappropriate advances toward multiple coworkers, which created a toxic work environment. The company never formally pressed charges, and Jake completed a mandatory training program before being reinstated. However, the incident was widely discussed in his professional circles, and several people warned my friends to be cautious around him. I was shocked because Emma never mentioned any of this. I confronted Emma about what I found out. She admitted she knew about the incident, but thought it was blown out of proportion, and that Jake had changed since then. She said she trusted him and asked me not to judge him based on his past. I told her I wasn't judging. I was just concerned about the safety and comfort of my guests, especially since this was my wedding and I wanted it to be a positive environment for everyone. Emma got defensive and accused me of being controlling and judgmental. She said that Jake had apologized and that people make mistakes. She even went so far as to say that if I didn't want Jake there, she might not come to the wedding at all. That really hurt because despite our differences, I want my sister there on one of the most important days of my life. I talked to Tom about it, and he agreed with me that if Jake's presence at the wedding made people uncomfortable or if there was any risk of inappropriate behavior, it wasn't worth it. We decided to have a private conversation with Emma where we told her that while we care about her and respect her choices, we didn't feel comfortable having Jake at the wedding. We said it was a hard decision, but one we made to protect the atmosphere of the event. Emma flipped. She called me selfish, told me I was choosing Tom over her, and said that I was alienating her for no good reason. She's been distant since then, barely answering my calls or texts. Some family members have taken her side, saying I should give Jake a chance and that I'm overreacting based on rumors. Others support my decision, saying that it's my wedding and my right to choose who attends. I'm stuck in the middle because I don't want to lose my sister, but I also don't want to risk making my wedding day uncomfortable or unsafe for anyone. I've tried to explain that this isn't about holding grudges, but about making sure everyone feels comfortable and respected. So, Reddit, AITA, for refusing to let my sister bring her new boyfriend to my wedding because of his past behavior? Or am I justified in trying to protect the environment I'm creating for my special day? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in after he crashed at my place for 2 months? So I, 28F, have always been the responsible, organized one in my family. I live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. I have a stable job, pay my bills on time, and generally keep my living space pretty tidy. My younger sister, Lily, 24F, on the other hand, has been struggling a bit. She's bright and talented, but has bounced around jobs and apartments since graduating college 2 years ago. She's the type who is very social, but often lets things slip through the cracks, like paying rent late or losing track of her responsibilities. Around 4 months ago, Lily's boyfriend, Jake, 27M, showed up at my apartment unexpectedly. He said he had some trouble with his apartment, something about his landlord selling the building and him needing to move out quickly. Lily told me Jake needed a place to crash for a couple of weeks while he figured things out. I wasn't thrilled at the idea, but since I liked Jake and figured it was only temporary, I agreed to let him stay on the couch. At first, it seemed manageable. Jake worked a part-time job and said he was looking for a new place. But a week turned into 2, then 3. Suddenly, Jake was there day and night, using my kitchen and bathroom, and I was having to adjust my schedule around him. I work early mornings, and I'm an introvert who values my alone time. My space felt invaded. I brought this up to Lily, telling her I was starting to feel uncomfortable with Jake staying so long without a clear plan. She assured me Jake was just figuring things out and that they were looking for a new place together. I said okay, but I made it clear I couldn't keep hosting him indefinitely. 2 months passed. Jake was still on my couch, hadn't paid rent or contributed to utilities, and I hadn't seen him putting much effort into finding a new place. He seemed to take it for granted that I'd keep letting him stay. I started noticing things missing from my fridge or food disappearing without explanation. When I mentioned this to Jake, he brushed it off, saying it was minor. During this time, Lily stopped visiting much, saying she was busy with work and school. The only times I saw her were drop off food or occasionally check in. I felt like Jake was using me, and Lily wasn't standing up for me or trying to help resolve the situation. One day, I came home from work exhausted, only to find Jake and some friends hanging out loudly in my living room. They were playing video games, eating my snacks, and left a mess behind. I confronted Jake, telling him this wasn't okay and he needed to respect my space. He got defensive, saying I was being ungrateful since he was going through a rough patch. I told him the rough patch didn't give him the right to take over my home. After that confrontation, I decided to tell Lily that Jake had to leave. I explained that while I was happy to help in a true emergency, this had gone beyond that. I also told her that if she wanted to maintain our relationship, she needed to support me on this. Lily was furious. She accused me of being heartless and said Jake was doing his best. She also accused me of kicking out her boyfriend when he was vulnerable. She threatened to cut me off if I didn't relent. I told her that my home and mental well-being were my priorities and that I couldn't have someone living with me indefinitely, especially someone who wasn't respecting my boundaries. Since then, Lily has barely talked to me. Jake eventually found a new place, but left behind a lot of damage in my apartment. I had to spend extra money fixing things and replacing items. I also feel hurt that my sister sided with Jake over me. I'm wondering if I'm the asshole for refusing to let Jake stay longer, or if I was right to draw a firm boundary. AITA? AITA for refusing to let my husband's estranged sister live with us after she showed up out of nowhere and demanded help. I, 34F, have been married to my husband, Mark, 36M, for 8 years. We have 2 kids, ages 5 and 3, and have built a pretty stable life in a mid-sized city. Mark works in IT, and I run a small graphic design business from home. We both come from very different family backgrounds, which has been a point of tension, but also growth for us over the years. About a month ago, Mark's older sister, Jenna, 40F, showed up at our doorstep unannounced. I had never met her in person before, only seen her in a few old family photos and heard about her through Mark's stories growing up. Mark's relationship with Jenna has always been complicated. She left home when they were teenagers and basically disappeared from their parents' lives. Mark has only had minimal contact with her over the years, mostly occasional texts on holidays. He warned me she could be a handful and was hesitant when she said she wanted to reconnect, but I had no idea what to expect. When Jenna knocked on our door, it was late afternoon on a weekday. I was home with the kids, and Mark was at work. Jenna looked tired, disheveled, and a little frantic. She told me she was in town after a fight with her boyfriend and had nowhere else to go. She said she wanted to start fresh and asked if she could stay with us for a while. I was taken aback. On one hand, I wanted to be compassionate. Family is family, after all. But I also felt blindsided and uncomfortable letting a relative I barely knew move in with 2 young kids in the house. I told her I'd talk to Mark as soon as he got home and we'd figure something out. When Mark got home, I explained the situation and we sat down to discuss it. Mark was hesitant, but said he wanted to try to support Jenna, especially since she seemed to be in a tough spot. We agreed she could stay for a week while we figured out a longer-term plan. That first week was a roller coaster. Jenna slept on the couch and mostly kept to herself. She didn't have a job or any income and was vague about her plans. She asked Mark to help her with money and kept bringing up how hard her life had been. She never once apologized for the sudden arrival or for not reaching out sooner. After that week, Mark wanted her to stay longer. He said she was family and needed us. I was deeply uncomfortable. Jenna had started staying out late, sometimes not coming home until the early morning. She left messes around the house and often argued with Mark about money. I had to step in more than once to keep the peace when things escalated. I tried to talk to Mark about my concerns, but he would brush them off, saying Jenna was going through a rough time and we should support her. He also felt guilty because Jenna had always been the black sheep, and he wanted to help her feel like she belonged. Things came to a head last weekend. I had planned a small birthday party for my daughter and invited a few close friends and family. Jenna showed up uninvited with a boyfriend I'd never met. They were loud and disruptive, drinking heavily and ignoring my request to keep it down. When I asked Jenna to leave, she became defensive and claimed she was part of the family and had every right to be there. The situation escalated, and Mark ended up yelling at me in front of everyone, saying I was being unfair to his sister. After the party, I I told Mark that Jenna could no longer stay with us. I was worried about the kids and my own mental health. Mark accused me of being selfish and not understanding what Jenna was going through. I stuck to my decision and told Jenna she had to find another place to stay. Jenna left the next day, but Mark has been distant and cold toward me ever since. He keeps bringing up how I betrayed his family and doesn't want to talk about anything else. I feel caught between supporting my husband and protecting my own family's well-being. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my husband's estranged sister live with us after she showed up unannounced and caused so much chaos? Or should I have been more understanding and supportive of her situation? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward me? So this is going to be a long one, and honestly, I'm still wrestling with whether I'm in the wrong here or not. My sister, Emily, and I have always had a bit of a rocky relationship, but we managed to stay civil, especially since she got engaged last year. The problem is her fiancé, Mark. This guy has made my life miserable, and now Emily's wedding is coming up, and I've refused to go because of how Mark treats me. Before you judge, hear me out. A bit of background. I'm 29, Emily is 32. We grew up with pretty average parents, loving but very traditional and strict in some ways. Emily was always the golden child, and I was the one who got into trouble or did things differently. Nothing major, just different choices in school, career, and social life. Emily married her high school boyfriend, Tom, but that ended badly around 5 years ago. After the divorce, she got involved with Mark, and I have to say the first time I met him, I got a very bad vibe. But Emily was smitten, so I kept my mouth shut. Mark is a very controlling and manipulative person. I can say that from personal experience because he has directly and indirectly made me feel unwelcome, belittled, and disrespected multiple times. For example, at a family barbecue last summer, I showed up with my boyfriend, Jason, who's a bit more laid-back and not the typical corporate type. Mark immediately started making snide remarks about Jason's clothes and job in front of everyone, which was humiliating. When I tried to defend Jason, Mark just smirked and said, "I'm just stating facts. Not everyone can be a high-powered lawyer like me." Everyone was quiet. Emily gave me a look like I should drop it, and the conversation moved on. That was the first major red flag. Since then, things have only gotten worse. Mark consistently undermines me in family settings, often makes passive-aggressive comments about my job. I'm a graphic designer, my relationship, and even my lifestyle choices. Emily either laughs it off or tells me I'm being too sensitive. I even caught him trying to convince my parents that I was too difficult to deal with and that Emily needed to cut ties with me for her own peace of mind. My parents, usually very neutral, seemed torn but didn't outright support me. That was heartbreaking. A few months ago, Emily asked me to be one of her bridesmaids. I was surprised but agreed, hoping this would be a step toward mending things. The problem? Mark insisted on being heavily involved in the wedding planning, including the bridal party. While I brought up some ideas for dresses and activities, Mark shut them down, saying they didn't fit his vision. Then, he told Emily that I was too much drama and not the right fit for the bridal party. Emily told me I had to play nice or risk being uninvited entirely. I was already feeling uneasy, but I agreed to keep my head down. Then came the invitation to the bachelor/bachelorette parties. I wasn't invited to the bachelorette party, despite being a bridesmaid. When I asked Emily why, she said Mark wanted it to be small and intimate, and only for her closest friends. I asked if that included me, and she said it wasn't personal, but that Mark didn't want drama around. That felt like a punch to the gut. Around this time, Mark's behavior escalated. At another family event, he cornered me in front of others and said that I was toxic and that Emily deserved better than me as a sister. I didn't say anything then, but it hurt so badly. I went to Emily afterward to tell her what happened, and she just told me to let it go and focus on the wedding. I started feeling like Emily had chosen Mark over me entirely. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. Emily had her bridal shower, and I wasn't invited. When I confronted her, she said Mark made the guest list and that it was too small. But the kicker was that Emily also told me that Mark had suggested I be removed from the bridal party altogether because of my negative attitude. Emily said she was sorry, but felt she couldn't stand up to Mark anymore. I felt completely rejected and disrespected. I told Emily I wouldn't attend the wedding if Mark was there, because I refuse to be in a room with someone who openly disrespects me and tears me down. She accused me of being dramatic and selfish, saying it was her day and I was ruining it for everyone. She also said Mark was just protective of her and that I was exaggerating. Since then, my relationship with Emily has been icy. Our parents are pressuring me to make peace and attend, but I'm firm in my decision. I'm hurt, angry, and confused. I don't want to be part of a family event where I feel so unwelcome and demeaned. At the same time, I don't want to lose my sister forever. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how her fiancé treats me? Or should I just suck it up for one day and be there for Emily? I want to do the right thing, but I'm not sure what that is anymore. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she completely disregarded my mental health and boundaries. So, this is a long story, but I want to lay everything out clearly because the way my sister and her fiancé have treated me over the past year has really left me feeling isolated and hurt. I, 28F, have a history of anxiety and depression, which I've been managing for several years now with therapy and medication. My family has always been somewhat aware of it, but only in the last couple of years have I gotten serious about setting firm boundaries to protect my mental health. This includes limiting stressful interactions and avoiding situations where I might feel overwhelmed or triggered. My sister, let's call her Emma, 30F, has always been the golden child of the family, very outgoing, organized, and frankly demanding. We used to be close growing up, but as adults, things have gotten more complicated. Emma tends to expect a lot from people, especially family, and doesn't always respect personal boundaries. About a year ago, Emma got engaged. Initially, I was really happy for her, but as the wedding plan started rolling, I noticed she was pushing me to take on a lot of roles I wasn't comfortable with. She asked me to be her maid of honor, which I was hesitant about because I know the role is stressful and requires a lot of emotional energy. When I told her I was nervous about it and might struggle, she insisted, saying it was important for me to step up for the family. I told her I needed some time to think about it. Meanwhile, she started involving me in every little detail of the wedding, from choosing dresses to organizing pre-wedding events. At first, I tried to be helpful because I didn't want to upset her, but it quickly became too much. Every time I brought up that I was overwhelmed or suggested maybe hiring a professional planner, she brushed me off or implied I was being lazy. The breaking point came about 6 months ago. Emma planned a bridal shower that was supposed to be a small gathering, but ended up being a big event with about 40 people in our small family home. I wasn't comfortable with so many people around me, especially because many of the guests were distant relatives I barely knew and who tend to be very intrusive. I told Emma beforehand I was anxious about the crowd and asked if there could be a quiet space or maybe I could come late or leave early. She said no, it had to be the full event, and that if I wasn't going to support her, I didn't really care about her happiness. At the shower, I ended up having a panic attack in a bathroom because I felt trapped and overwhelmed. Emma barely acknowledged it and later told me I was being dramatic and ruining the mood. That really hurt. I told her I was going to start setting clearer boundaries about what I could and couldn't handle because my mental health needed to come first. Fast forward to now, the wedding is about a month away. Emma still expects me to be her maid of honor, handle a ton of planning tasks, and be involved in every step. She sent me a detailed itinerary for the whole wedding weekend, including times I was expected to be available, and it's packed from morning to night with no breaks. I sat down with her recently to talk. I explained that I could not commit to being maid of honor, that I needed to step back from the planning, and that I would only attend the wedding ceremony itself, because anything more would be too much for my mental health. I offered to help with a small part of the event, like giving a toast, or helping with a few personal tasks that wouldn't overwhelm me. Emma lost it. She said I was selfish, that I didn't love her or care about her special day, and that I was making everything about myself. She said I was embarrassing her in front of the family and that she didn't want me at the wedding if I wasn't fully participating. Our parents got involved after Emma called them, and they sided mostly with Emma, saying I should try harder to support my sister. They said weddings are once in a lifetime, and I should push through for the family. I feel really torn. On one hand, I want to be there for my sister because I do love her, but on the other hand, I have to prioritize my mental health or I risk a serious relapse. I've told everyone I'm willing to attend the ceremony and support her in smaller ways, but they all want me to do everything and more. I've been getting messages from relatives saying I'm being selfish and disrespectful, and some are even suggesting I might be better off not coming at all since I'm not willing to fully commit to her demands. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to be my sister's maid of honor and for setting boundaries around the wedding events that she and the family see as not supportive enough. I just want to take care of myself and still have a relationship with my sister, but I don't know if that's possible right now. AITA for refusing to give my sister my wedding dress, even though she insists it's family tradition and is threatening to cut me out of the will. I, 28F, am getting married next year, and my sister, 32F, is making the entire process way more stressful than I ever expected. We have a complicated history, but this situation feels like it might finally break us. A bit of background. My sister and I have always had a competitive, intense relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child and got a lot of attention from our parents, while I was more independent and often felt overlooked. Over the years, we've managed to keep a civil relationship, but there's always underlying resentment and tension. Our parents have recently started playing favorites with her even more, which doesn't help. When I got engaged, I was genuinely excited to share the news with my family, but I immediately felt the weight of expectations, especially from my sister. She told me that there's a family tradition where the older sister's wedding dress is passed down to the younger sister for her own wedding, and she expected me to honor that tradition and give her my dress after my wedding. I was surprised because I had never heard of this tradition before. Our mom said it wasn't really a thing, just something my sister made up. My wedding dress is very important to me. I bought it after months of searching, and it feels like a huge part of my identity for this day. It's custom-made, and I had a very specific vision that required the dress to be exactly how I wanted it. I can't imagine parting with it, especially since I want to keep it as a keepsake or possibly pass it down to my own future daughter one day. When I told my sister I didn't want to give her the dress, she got furious. She said that refusing to give her the dress was disrespecting family tradition and that I was being selfish. She even threatened that if I don't give her the dress, she would cut me out of our parents' will. Our parents have substantial assets, and I'm not particularly close with them, but I do want to maintain a relationship and not burn bridges. I asked her if she would consider buying her own dress or finding something else, but she insisted this was non-negotiable. The tension escalated. Our parents stepped in and tried to mediate, saying that if it really means that much to my sister, maybe I should consider giving her the dress as a way to keep peace in the family. I told them that while I appreciate their concern, I can't force myself to give away something so personal, especially when the tradition isn't something they even acknowledge. My sister then started posting passive-aggressive messages on social media, hinting that I'm a selfish, ungrateful sister who doesn't value family. She's also been talking to mutual friends, painting me as the villain. This has made me feel isolated, and I honestly didn't expect my wedding to cause this much drama. I want to enjoy my wedding without the constant stress of family fights. I'm feeling guilty because I love my sister, and I want to maintain some kind of relationship with her, but I also feel like she's crossing a line by demanding something so personal and trying to manipulate me through threats. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister my wedding dress, even though she says it's a family tradition and is threatening to cut me out of the will? Should I just give in to keep the peace? Or is she being unreasonable for making this such a big deal? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her choice of bridesmaids? So here's the story. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F. We've had a complicated relationship growing up. Not outright hostile, but competitive and strained in ways that only siblings can understand. Emily is the golden child type in our family, always the favorite, always getting special treatment, which has fueled some resentment on my part over the years. I'm not proud of it, but it's the reality. Emily recently got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, whom I met a few times and think is generally fine. She started planning the wedding months ago, and this is where things started getting messy. From the start, Emily was very clear about how she wanted her wedding to look and who she wanted involved. That makes sense. It's her day, after all. But when she announced her bridesmaids, I was blindsided. The group she chose consists of 5 women: her best friend from college, 2 coworkers she's close with, and her ex-boyfriend's current girlfriend. Let me give some context. Emily dated a guy named Josh for about 2 years in college. They broke up on bad terms. Emily felt betrayed and cheated on, and for a long time, she avoided talking about him. Meanwhile, Josh started dating someone new named Sarah not too long after the breakup. Sarah and I have actually crossed paths before. She's always been polite but distant. What shocked me was that Emily not only invited Sarah to be a bridesmaid, but publicly declared how much she admires Sarah's strength and kindness. This struck me as weird, since the breakup with Josh was rough, and Sarah basically replaced Emily in Josh's life. My initial reaction was to think that Emily was trying to be mature and above it all, which, while commendable, still felt strange given the history. However, things escalated from there. Emily also invited Sarah to her bridal shower and bachelorette party, and I was included in the guest lists. I have always had a polite but somewhat frosty relationship with Sarah, and I never felt comfortable around her, mostly because I felt like she represented the chapter of Emily's life that was full of pain and betrayal for her. Here's where I made my choice that sparked the fallout. I told Emily privately that I didn't feel comfortable attending the wedding with Sarah as a bridesmaid. I said it wasn't personal against Sarah, but that the whole dynamic felt off to me and that I didn't want to be around someone who had effectively replaced Emily in her ex's life and now was being elevated to a key position in the wedding. Emily's reaction was not what I expected. She was hurt and confused, saying she wanted the wedding to be a place of healing and forgiveness, and that Sarah was part of that journey for her. She said my refusal felt like a personal attack against Sarah and that I was being petty. She told me if I didn't attend, I'd be cutting ties with her for good. I tried to explain that it wasn't about punishing Emily or trying to ruin her day, but about my own boundaries and discomfort. I offered to talk to Sarah to smooth things over or even to just skip the bridesmaids' events and only show up for the ceremony or reception. But Emily said no. She wanted me there fully or not at all. At this point, I told Emily I wouldn't be attending the wedding. That's when the family got involved. My parents called me, pleading with me to reconsider. They said Emily was devastated and that the wedding was a huge deal for her. My mom accused me of making a big deal out of nothing and told me I was being selfish. The fallout was immediate. Emily unfriended me on social media, stopped replying to my messages, and the rest of the family mostly sided with her, telling me I was overreacting and being the antagonist in this situation. A few relatives privately told me they understood my perspective but didn't want to say anything out loud. Since then, I've been stuck in this family drama limbo, feeling guilty but also firm in my boundaries. I want my sister's wedding to be happy, but I also don't want to pretend everything is fine when I'm uncomfortable and hurt by the situation. I've thought about reaching out to Sarah directly to try and build some kind of bridge, but I'm worried that might be seen as manipulative or intrusive. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I don't want to be around her ex-boyfriend's girlfriend who is a bridesmaid? Or is it fair for me to set this boundary for my own mental health, even if it means missing a big family event? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded me from the bridal party and invited my ex? This is a long one, so bear with me. I, 29F, come from a pretty close-knit family, at least on the surface. My sister, Emma, 32F, is the older sibling and has always been the golden child in our family. Growing up, I often felt like I was living in her shadow. She's charismatic, popular, and extremely organized, while I'm more introverted and laid back. Despite that, I've always tried to support her in everything, especially with her wedding planning over the past year. Here's where things get complicated. Emma got engaged last year, and I was genuinely happy for her. She got engaged to Mark, 34M, who I'll admit seemed like a decent guy, though not someone I was particularly close to. When Emma started planning the wedding, she announced she'd have a small bridal party, which I thought was fair since her group of friends is large and tight-knit. However, I was really hoping to be a bridesmaid, or at least a maid of honor, because, well, I'm her sister. But she only chose her two best friends, and to make matters worse, she included my ex-boyfriend, Jake, 30M, in the bridal party. A little background on Jake. We dated for 3 years and broke up almost 2 years ago. The breakup was mutual and amicable, but we remained distant, mostly because it was too awkward to be around each other. I didn't expect Emma to invite him to her wedding, especially since I wasn't included. I brought it up casually, thinking maybe it was a misunderstanding or maybe he was just a close friend of hers too, but Emma brushed it off, saying she wanted to keep the bridal party small and that Jake was like family to her. I felt hurt, but tried to push it aside. Over the next few months, things got weirder. Emma started treating me more like a distant relative than a sister. She didn't ask for my input on any of the wedding plans and barely responded to texts about family stuff. Then came the guest list drama. I noticed that she invited several of her friends who had never really met me, while some of my close friends, people she'd met multiple times, weren't invited at all. That's fine, it's her wedding, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt like she was intentionally excluding me. Then came the straw that broke the camel's back. I found out from a mutual friend that Emma had been talking negatively about me behind my back, calling me too boring and clingy. It hurt because I've always tried to be supportive, even if our personalities clash. I confronted Emma gently, hoping we could clear the air before the wedding, but she denied saying anything bad and accused me of being overly sensitive. The final blow came when I received my official invitation. Along with the invite, there was a schedule of events, including the rehearsal dinner and bridal shower. I was invited to the rehearsal dinner, but explicitly excluded from the bridal shower. Apparently, she was only inviting the bridal party to the shower. That felt like a slap in the face, since she knew how close my friends were and that I had always been involved in her life's milestones. At this point, I told Emma that I wasn't sure I wanted to attend the wedding if this was how she felt about me. I didn't want to be there just as a filler or for appearances. She got defensive, saying I was being dramatic and selfish for making it about me when it was her day. I tried explaining how it felt to be excluded and overshadowed, but she didn't seem to understand. So here's where I'm at. I have decided not to attend the wedding. I told her I can't be part of a day where I'm not considered family and where my presence feels unwelcome. I also told her I can't celebrate alongside my ex, who she's clearly prioritized over me. Our parents are furious at me for causing a family rift over what they see as petty jealousy. They think I should just suck it up for the sake of family unity. I don't know if I'm the asshole here. I feel like I'm standing up for myself, but maybe I'm overreacting or being too sensitive. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded me from the bridal party and invited my ex. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she invited me last minute, then demanding I pay for part of it. This all started about 6 months ago when my sister, Emily, who's 27, suddenly got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark. I'm 30, and we've never been super close, but we've had a pretty normal sibling relationship. We don't hang out all the time, but we talk occasionally and keep tabs on each other's lives. Emily's always been a bit impulsive and dramatic, so when she called me out of the blue to tell me about the engagement, I was happy for her, but didn't expect much. Fast forward to about 2 months ago. I get a message from Emily saying they want to have a wedding very soon, in about 3 months. The twist? They want to have the ceremony and reception at my house. Now, I live in a decent-sized place with a big backyard, and I'm pretty proud of it. I've hosted a few gatherings before, but never anything on the scale of a wedding. I was immediately thrown off. She hadn't mentioned anything about the wedding or plans earlier, and suddenly, here she was, expecting me to turn my home into a wedding venue on short notice. I asked her why she thought my house was a good idea, and she said, because you have the space and it'll save us money. We don't want a traditional venue. I tried to explain that hosting a wedding isn't just about having space. It involves planning, cleaning, logistics, and a lot of work. Also, 3 months is a very short timeline for something like this. Emily brushed off my concerns and said she thought I'd be excited to help. I said I needed some time to think it over because it was a big ask. A few days later, she sent me a list of things they would need me to handle, including setting up chairs, managing the caterers, and helping with decorations. On top of that, she hinted that I'd be expected to help with some of the costs, mostly supplies, rental fees for tables and chairs, and some food items. At this point, I was starting to feel overwhelmed and a little taken advantage of. I live alone and work full-time, and suddenly, I was supposed to dedicate all my free time to planning and hosting a major event, and possibly foot part of the bill too. I told Emily I wasn't comfortable with any of this. Hosting a wedding is a huge responsibility, and it wasn't something I could just drop everything for. Plus, I wasn't okay with paying for the event. Emily got really upset. She said I was being selfish and that family should support each other, especially for something this important. She said since I was the only one with a big enough place, it was basically my duty. She also said Mark's parents weren't helping much financially, so she hoped I'd understand. I told her I could help with small things, maybe help her find a venue or brainstorm ideas, but I couldn't host it or pay for part of it. She called me cold and unsupportive. A few days later, she said she was going to look elsewhere, but wanted me to at least be there for the wedding. Then, things escalated. I got a group message from my extended family, basically pressuring me to help Emily. They said it was embarrassing that I wouldn't step up and support my sister. Some even said I was acting entitled and that Emily had been too stressed to plan and needed all the help she could get. I felt cornered, but I stood my ground. I told Emily that I cared about her and wanted her to have a great wedding, but I couldn't host or finance it. She responded by unfriending me on social media and telling our parents that I was being difficult and unkind. Now, here's where it gets worse. My parents invited Emily and Mark over recently to talk, hoping to smooth things out. Emily confronted me again and said if I refused to help, she wouldn't invite me to the wedding at all. That hurt a lot because despite our differences, I still wanted to be there for her big day. I told her I'd be there if the wedding was somewhere else, but if she was going to exclude me, then that was her choice. She said she's not changing the venue and doesn't want me there if I'm not helping with the hosting. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my place on short notice and declining to pay part of it. Even though she claims I should support her, I'm not trying to be difficult, but it feels like an unreasonable demand and that she's punishing me for it. AITA for leaving my sister stranded at a wedding because she wore a white dress after I begged her not to. This happened a few months ago, and it's still causing issues in my family. I, 28F, got married to my now husband, 32M, in July. It was a small but elegant wedding at a vineyard estate, and it took me over a year to plan everything down to the last detail. The guest list was tight, about 60 people, just close family and friends. One of those guests was my younger sister, Megan, 25F. Megan and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's one of those people who needs attention at all times, and if she's not the center of the room, she finds a way to make herself a topic. I love her, but she exhausts me. Growing up, she always had to one-up me. If I got an A, she got an A+ and made sure everyone knew. If I got a compliment, she'd repeat it later to someone else and add a dramatic twist. It's just who she is. I was very clear in my wedding invitation and during our conversations that I wanted a certain aesthetic, blush tones, soft neutrals. I even created a Pinterest board for inspiration, which I shared with all my bridesmaids and female guests. Yes, I know not everyone does this, but I'm a designer and aesthetic matters to me. I asked guests not to wear white, ivory, or anything that could be mistaken for bridal. I emphasized this in a polite but direct way because I knew Megan might push boundaries. About 2 weeks before the wedding, I had a call with her. I reiterated the dress code and even offered to help her pick something out or pay for a dress if money was tight. She brushed me off, saying, "Don't worry, I'll look hot, but not bridal." That phrase stuck with me, and I felt uneasy, but I let it go because I didn't want to fight. The day of the wedding arrived, and everything was going beautifully until Megan showed up. She walked in 20 minutes late during the ceremony in a floor-length, backless, satin white dress with a train. I swear to God, it looked like a damn wedding dress. People actually turned their heads to stare. My maid of honor told me. Later, someone whispered, "Is that the bride?" I saw her while we were taking photos after the ceremony, and I immediately pulled her aside. I asked her what the hell she was thinking, and she had the audacity to say, "It's champagne, not white. Don't be so insecure." I told her she needed to change immediately or leave. She acted like I was insane and said I was ruining my own wedding with my drama. We argued, and I finally told her if she wouldn't change, she needed to go. She refused. So I told our day of coordinator and one of the groomsmen, who's also a bouncer conveniently, to escort her out and make sure she didn't come back in. She threw a fit, screamed at me in front of our guests, and then stormed off, saying I'd regret this for the rest of my life. Here's where I might be the **** hole. She didn't have a car. I knew this. She came with my cousin, but they'd had a fight that morning, and he left without her. The venue was about 45 minutes from a city, kind of remote. I knew there were no Ubers or Lyfts in that area at that hour. I basically left her stranded in the middle of nowhere in a floor-length dress with no way to get home. I found out later she had to call an ex to pick her up and waited over 2 hours in the parking lot, sitting on gravel in her champagne gown. The story got around, and half my family is furious. My mom is especially angry, saying I should have just let it go for the day and dealt with it afterward. My dad says Megan humiliated me and got what she deserved. Friends are split. Some say I was justified. Others say it was petty to kick out my own sister and leave her stranded. Megan hasn't spoken to me since. She skipped my birthday, didn't come to our post-wedding brunch, and hasn't responded to my messages. She's been posting passive-aggressive quotes on Instagram, like, "People will forget what you did, but not how you made them feel," and "family isn't always blood." Sometimes I lie awake wondering if I went too far. Yes, she was out of line, but maybe I should have let slide. It was just one day. Then again, it was my day, and I feel like if I let her stay, it would have eaten at me the entire night. I had to choose between making a scene or letting her be the center of attention again. So, Reddit, AITA for kicking my sister out of my wedding for wearing a white dress and leaving her with no way home. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. So, here's a long one, and I really need to get it off my chest and hear what people think. I'm 29F, the older sister of my sister, 27F. Let's call her Anna. Anna has been dating her fiancé, Mark, 30M, for about 2 years now, and they just recently got engaged. The wedding is set for next spring. I've always been pretty close to Anna. We grew up sharing everything from secrets to clothes, and even after moving out, we kept a tight bond. Our parents divorced when we were young, and I always felt like I had to look out for her, especially since she's the younger one. Mark came into the picture about 2 years ago, and at first I was excited for Anna. She seemed genuinely happy. But very quickly, I started noticing things about Mark that rubbed me the wrong way. The more time I spent around him, the more uncomfortable I felt. It started with small things. He was dismissive of Anna's opinions and conversations, especially around his friends and family. He would make jokes at her expense that didn't feel funny, more like put-downs. When Anna confided in me about some of his behaviors, like him ignoring her messages for hours or canceling plans last minute, I brushed it off because every relationship has its quirks, right? But then things escalated. About 6 months ago, at a family dinner, Mark got into an argument with my dad, who was pretty laid back, over a trivial thing, the seating arrangement at the table. Mark was condescending and refused to back down, which was embarrassing because my dad was trying to keep the peace. Anna didn't say much, but looked visibly upset afterward. That same night, I noticed Mark completely ignoring Anna, scrolling on his phone and occasionally sneering at her comments to the group. I pulled Anna aside later to ask if she was okay, and she told me that Mark often makes her feel invisible in social settings, like she's just there to look pretty and keep quiet. Now, this might sound like typical couple stuff, but I started paying more attention to how Mark treated her over the next few months. He would monopolize conversations, correct her publicly, and even make jokes about her weight and looks, things that Anna used to be insecure about. She laughed along sometimes, but I know it hurt her. I've tried talking to Anna multiple times, expressing my concerns gently, but she always defends him. She says I don't understand their dynamic, that Mark's just being playful, and that I'm overreacting because I'm biased as her protective sister. She insists that Mark treats her well when it's just the two of them, so I shouldn't judge based on what I see in group settings. Fast forward to the engagement announcement. Mark proposed, and Anna was thrilled. We all congratulated them, but I stayed silent because I was struggling with whether I should be happy for her or worried. The biggest issue came when the wedding planning started. Anna asked me to be her maid of honor, which I initially felt honored to do. But then I started noticing Mark's behavior toward me, and it was not good. He was dismissive, borderline rude when I tried to offer help or suggestions for the wedding. At one point, he outright told me my ideas were outdated and that I should just leave it to the professionals. The final straw was last weekend at a pre-wedding family brunch. Mark was invited, and things got tense quickly. He openly criticized the venue choice, saying it was too cheap and not worthy of their special day, right in front of my parents, Anna, and me. While I tried to defend the venue and say that it had sentimental value for Anna, Mark snapped at me to stop acting like the expert. Anna didn't stand up for me. In fact, she rolled her eyes and told me to drop it because Mark was just stressed about the wedding. After the brunch, I pulled Anna aside and told her I didn't feel respected by Mark, and I wasn't sure I could support their marriage if things didn't change. She got defensive and accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness. I told her that my priority is her well-being, and I'm concerned about how Mark treats her. She said she's happy, and that's what matters. She also told me that if I couldn't be supportive, then maybe I shouldn't be involved in the wedding at all. I have since told Anna that I will not be attending the wedding unless Mark apologizes for his behavior toward me and, more importantly, treats Anna with respect. I don't want to be part of a celebration where I feel like an outsider and where someone I care about is being mistreated. My family is split on this. Some say I'm overreacting and should just get over it for Anna's sake. Others agree that Mark has been toxic and that I'm justified in standing my ground. Anna hasn't spoken to me since I told her I'm not coming unless things change. I feel awful because I love my sister and I want her to be happy. But I can't ignore what I've seen or pretend like Mark's behavior isn't harmful. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? Or should I just swallow my pride and be there for her no matter what? AITA for kicking my brother and his fiancée out of my wedding because of a prank they pulled during the ceremony? 28F, got married 2 months ago to my now husband, Liam, 30M. We had a medium-sized wedding with about 120 guests, held outdoors at a venue I've dreamed of since I was 16. Everything was planned meticulously, and I genuinely thought the day was going to be perfect. My younger brother, Jake, 24M, and I have had a complicated relationship over the years. He's always been the funny guy, the type who prides himself on being the life of the party, even if it means pushing boundaries. He's pulled pranks at family events before, usually harmless, but not always appreciated. I made it explicitly clear in the months leading up to the wedding that I didn't want any surprises, jokes, or funny moments, unless they were pre-approved by me. He laughed it off, but said he understood. Jake's fiancée, Tara, 22F, is very similar to him in humor. They met in college, and honestly, I always found her a bit immature, but I tolerated her for Jake's sake. I didn't include her in the bridal party, and while she seemed a little miffed, she said she was excited just to attend. Now here's where everything went sideways. The ceremony was going beautifully. I wasn't nervous until I started walking down the aisle and noticed that several guests were trying not to laugh. Some even had their phones discreetly out. I didn't understand why until I got to the altar and looked at Liam. His expression was unreadable, but then I turned and saw them. Jake and Tara were standing off to the side, in full dinosaur costumes. Inflatable T-Rex suits. Not subtle ones. Giant, squeaky, bright orange dinosaur suits. At first, I was so stunned I thought maybe it was a joke being filmed for something unrelated to the wedding. But no, they were doing it on purpose. Tara had apparently told a few people earlier that they wanted to lighten the mood and make it memorable. I was furious, but I didn't want to cause a scene, so I whispered to Liam that I'd handle it after the ceremony. But they didn't stop there. During our vows, the part we specifically asked everyone to respect and remain silent for, Jake let out a loud, fake dinosaur roar. People gasped. My grandmother actually looked like she might faint. Our officiant paused, thinking something was wrong. I turned to glare at Jake, and he just shrugged and gave me a thumbs up from inside his stupid inflatable head. After the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, I pulled them aside and told them they had completely disrespected me and made a joke out of the most important day of my life. Jake tried to play it off like I was being uptight and said, "It's just a joke. You'll laugh one day." Tara chimed in that weddings are boring and that at least people would remember ours. That's when I lost it. I told them both to leave immediately. No reception, no photos, no dinner. Jake got angry and said I was overreacting and being a bridezilla. He even accused me of being jealous that he stole the spotlight. I told him he could either leave on his own or I'd have security escort them out. He left, swearing under his breath, and Tara was crying about how I ruined their night. Later that evening, my phone blew up with messages from family, some siding with me, some saying I went too far. My mom, who's always taken Jake's side, said I embarrassed him and should have just let it go for the sake of the family. My dad, however, was fully in my corner and said he would have kicked them out too. Since the wedding, Jake hasn't spoken to me. Tara unfollowed me on everything and blocked me. My mom keeps asking me to apologize so we can go back to normal, but I don't feel like I should be the one to apologize. I feel like they humiliated me on a day that wasn't about them at all. But the guilt is starting to creep in. I've replayed the whole thing in my head so many times, wondering if I should have just ignored it and focused on the bigger picture. Our wedding was still beautiful, and Liam was incredibly supportive, but that memory is now attached to this underlying sense of embarrassment and anger. I know some people might think I'm being overly sensitive, but I gave clear boundaries. I told them not to pull any pranks. They chose to ignore that, and worse, they made themselves the center of attention at a ceremony that wasn't about them. Still, I wonder if I should have just laughed it off. Maybe I'm being a bridezilla. So, AITA for kicking them out of my wedding over a joke. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.